Set a timer for 15 minutes. Unit 8, video number 1, Great Depression, New Deal. I can defend, criticize rugged individualism. I can criticize U.S. foreign policy or the plans between outside nations. Mainly the Kellogg-Briand Pact is what we'll talk about. And then tell me about how does a corporation operate? Rugged individualism. Let's talk about the defense of it, and then let's talk about the criticism of it. The defense is that America should follow this concept or idea of rugged individualism, meaning that if you want to be successful, then you, the individual, should work really hard. And the harder you work, the more money you'll make, the more assets you'll gain, the better your life will be. And if you work less, if you do less, you will earn less and you will have less. The idea is that the individual determines what he or she has. If you work really hard, then you can lift yourself up and your family up and be really good. And if you don't, then too bad, so sad. The government should not be involved in this. The government should not pick winners and losers. The government should not even the playing field. If Mr. A works really hard, then Mr. A should be rich. And if Mr. B doesn't work hard, then Mr. B will be poor. That's rugged individualism. The idea that America should be about the individual and you get what you put in. The criticism of that are the people that say, no, that's not the way that it should work. The only reason that you even believe in that idea is because you just don't want to pay taxes. You don't want to pay for taxes that support the government to support other people. You came up with this idea of rugged individualism that if you work really hard, everything works out. Well, life's not that simple. It doesn't really work that way. Some people need government help and you just don't want to pay for it. And so what you say is, oh, we don't need any government. If you just work hard, everything's going to work out. That does sound a little ridiculous, right? That if you just work hard, everything's going to work out. Yeah, that may not be the way that it works, but in the defense of rugged individualism, shouldn't that be our guiding principle? I mean, if we're here on this earth, we're here in this nation, shouldn't we all work hard? Shouldn't we all try to do our best? Shouldn't we try to support ourselves? Shouldn't we just say, hey, no, I'll take care of myself. I'll take care of my family. I don't need government support. That's the idea of rugged individualism. And if everyone approaches life that way, then everything will be fine. Again, the criticism will be like, no, you just made that up because you don't want to pay taxes. You're already rich. You're already successful. You just don't want to share with everybody else. We're just trying to help out the people that are less fortunate. So that's the argument. I tend to be more on the defense of rugged individualism. I don't know how I can understand the criticism. I can understand that wanting government support, and there are some reasons for government support and government services, but I cannot accept the idea of it being not okay to work hard and get more. That does not make any sense to me. The idea that we should be ashamed or we should be persecuted for working hard and expecting more in return for our hard work. That's the idea of rugged individualism. The Kellogg-Briand Pact. This is a declaration or an agreement or between nations where there's going to be no more offensive wars. No more wars. We all signed it on a piece of paper, so it must be. Really? We're going to all agree to a piece of paper and say, hey, we're never going to fight a war again. Yeah, well, I signed the paper, so it must be true. Come on. So obviously, it doesn't work. No one is going to listen to, oh, well, you know what? We were going to go to war, but we signed that piece of paper. I guess we can't do it. Well, soon after the Kellogg-Briand Pact is signed and agreed upon, Japan invades China. You can't do that. China's like, dude, it's illegal. We said no more offensive wars. And Japan's response is, well, don't worry. We didn't officially declare war. We're not really calling this a war. We're just invading your country and killing people and taking land. It's not technically a war. Then what is a war? Anyway, we soon realized that, look, you can write on a piece of paper, no more war. And you can do that today. We can all sign a piece of paper. Do you really believe that all the nations around the world are going to join hands and sing Kumbaya? It's never going to happen. War is always going to be here. And just because people sign any type of agreement that, hey, we all agree we're not going to pollute anymore. How well has that worked out recently? And that's over the last 30 years. It's not the most recent deals in Paris. The idea that we all agree to be awesome people. It's just a piece of paper. It does not necessarily change anything, unfortunately. Continuing this idea after World War I that we're going to become more isolationist, we're going to stay out of no one wants to go to another giant war, and especially America in a war that, if you watched the videos before, we never should have been involved in World War I, period. Americans should have never lost their lives in World War I, but we did, and afterwards, the people of America said, no more, enough. Isolation. We're tired of getting involved in other countries, which is a popular thing today. Maybe we should care about America first and not worry about what's going on in the Middle East today, or in Europe back then, or what's going on in Asia. For example, right? Japan invaded China. Well, we should do something about it. Well, no. Most Americans during that time said, no, we're staying home. We'll take care of America. They've got their own problems. We're not going to be world police. We are going to be isolationists. Now, they didn't say isolationist because isolationist is a pejorative. It makes you look like, oh, you're trying to stay out of the world's affairs. You care only about yourself. It's a negative term. Sometimes you hear nationalist, but there's not really a positive way to spin it, although there is kind of a positive way of, hey, we pulled all of our troops out of Latin America. This is called the good neighbor policy. Another example of after World War I, the American people speaking to their government saying, enough's enough. Take care of America. We do not need to be in Latin America. We do not need to be in Europe. We do not need to be in Asia. China and Japan, that's China and Japan's problem. Brazil, Peru, Argentina, that's their deal. Europe is Europe. How about the American government deal with America? Some people say, well, by doing that, you then set the stage for World War II because we're not active. We allow some bad stuff to happen. It's a decent argument. All right, next thing. Your AP U.S. history guidelines and your basically every guidelines are going to tell you that economies are cyclical. What's an economy? Economy is anywhere where you buy or sell goods. When we're talking about business and production and distribution of goods and consumers and supply and demand and what we make and what we sell and how we make it, that's all economics. And the idea is that there are cycles, that it goes up and goes down. There's good times and there's bad times. The economy grows, and at a certain point, the economy has to come back down. It's going to go up and down. Now, that's what the standards are going to tell you. And if you look throughout history, you're going to see these ups and downs, and you're going to experience these ups and downs throughout your life. These peaks and troughs, contractions and expansions. That's what you want to answer on the test. The answer for the test is that economies are cyclical. They go up and down. Is it true? It depends on what economists you're listening to. If you listen to the Austrian School of Economics, they disagree. They believe that boom-bust cycles like you see here, boom, bust, they are not natural. They are not a natural part of capitalism. They are created by a poor government monetary policy, the government's poor management of the money in the economy. Low interest rates, creating inflation, sending too much money into the economy creates these booms and busts. They are not natural. It's the result of the government messing around with the money supply. If you don't have a Federal Reserve or a central bank constantly manipulating the economy, then you don't have these. These are not natural. But for your test, you better answer it's natural because the government wants you to believe this. So make sure that on the test you say, yes, economies are cyclical and these ups and downs are natural. In real life, that may not be the case. Investing. What is the definition of investing? It's a blah, 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 complicated economic stuff. Just show me the pictures already. Okay. So if you got a factory and you make cars, you're going to sell the cars, you make money. If you could make more cars, you could make more money. Another factory makes more cars, make more money. You got 3 factories, you can make 3 times as many cars, you can make 3 times as much money. That's awesome. It's a great deal. So the thing is, we need more factories so we can make more cars, so we can make more money. How do we get more factories? Well, you got to build the factories. That's going to cost money. So you need more money to build the factories. And then eventually you'll make more money. But the first thing we got to focus on is how do we get more factories? Well, let's go with the slow and long process. Let's just play this out. If factory 1, you only have 1 factory in this situation so far. So let's rewind the clock a little bit. You have 1 factory. It costs about $10,000 for you to make a car. That means the parts, the labor, all the things that go into making the car. It costs you $10,000. Then you turn around and you sell the car for $15,000. You make a profit of $5,000. The cost of a new factory will be about $50 million. If you add a new factory, you can make more cars. You can sell more cars. You can make more money. So that's the goal. We want to sell cars to make money to buy a new factory. If we do it this route, making $5,000 a pop, we're going to have to sell 10,000 cars. That's going to take a while before we can build that other factory. So maybe we just go to the bank, we borrow some money, we borrow that money, we build more factories, we make more cars, and we make more money, and with all that money, we pay the loan back really quickly. Problem is, it's very hard to get that kind of loan from a bank. You can, but there's a better way. There's a better way to get this influx of money, to build the factories, to get this thing rolling. Because obviously, once we get the factories, then we'll make the cars, we'll make the money easily. We are good for it. We're going to be able to pay back the loan. But there's a better way to get this money. And this is investing. This is how this works. So again, we got to get the money from the factories. How do we get this money to get the factories? We get investors. We get investors, which are everyday people like you and me, that are investing their money and want to get some sort of return. What? So basically, every investor is like a tiny little bank. Instead of borrowing all the money from a big bank, we borrow the money from tiny little banks, which are people like you and me. And the reason that they're giving their money to the company is because so they get a return. I give my $100 to the car factory to buy a little teeny piece of the car factory. And if the car factory does well, I get my $100 back and a little bit more. So I am investing. Just like you save your money in a bank, you can also save your money by investing it in companies. And if that company does well, your money grows. And so it works out really well for you, the investor, but it also works out really well for them because when they borrow the money from you or they take the money, your investment, they use that money to build more factories. With the more factories, they build more cars. They sell more cars. They make more money. Here's how it slices down. Let's pretend there you are, the business owner. You own 51%, the majority of the company. And then these 7 guys, they all own 7%. That's 49%. That equals 100% of the company. Let's say the company makes $1 million this year, 2015, whatever year that is. 51% of the profits go to the owner. And then 7% or 70% or 7% goes to each guy, which ends up being $70,000, $70,000, $70,000. So they made that money as well by owning 7% of this company. That's how everyone wins, obviously, if you do well. And that's why they invested. They gave their money to the car company, hoping the car company can make money, and then they get money back in return. It's an investment. And this is how a corporation works. A corporation is owned by a bunch of different investors. It is a company that's owned by a bunch of different investors. That is a corporation. So you as an investor can invest in a corporation. You can buy into any corporation. I'll show you a bunch here in a second. Now it's high risk, high reward. Some are less risk, but the bigger the risk in the company that you invest, the more money you can make. You invest in a company, they do well, you make money. But if that company goes out of business, then you lose your money. There's a lot of risk. You invest in a company that used to do some sort of a bad company, flip phones. You invest in a flip phone company in 2007. Guess what? Flip phones are gone. All your money's gone. They went out of business. But in 2007, if you would have invested in Apple, they've done really well, you would have made money. So you're gambling. You're trying to pick which company will do well. The other alternative is you just put the money in the bank. This is low risk, but it's low reward. You put your money in the bank, over time, it grows. A lot of people decide this option, and we're glad that they do because these businesses need your money. That's the way they expand. Go back to the car example from previously. We need more factories to build more cars. We need more factories to build more cars. There it is, right there. If we don't have the factories to build the cars, then we don't build the cars and we don't have the jobs. But if you invest in the company, you give your money to the corporation, the corporation expands, they build more factories, they hire more workers, and the economy can grow. And this starts with you. That's why corporations are very important, maybe more so than banks in some examples. So that's an idea of how a corporation works. Here are as an example. These are all giant corporations, and MSNBC, which I think is part of General Electric, has thousands and thousands of investors that buy a part of the company. They give their money to Mobil. They give their money to Kool-Aid, which I believe is owned by Kraft. And they give their money to that company. That company takes the money, grows their business, and tries to take that money and to sell more Kool-Aid. If they sell more Kool-Aid, then you make money from it. More examples of corporations. That's how a corporation works. Basically, it's just a big company like Coca-Cola. It's owned by thousands and thousands of people that are buying that own a little teeny piece of Coca-Cola. They put their money in, and then Coca-Cola takes all that money and tries to use all that money to expand their business to sell more sodas. And if they sell more sodas, then you, the investor that owns a little bit of money, then you make money off of Coca-Cola. That's how most of our giant American businesses work. They are corporations. Coca-Cola is not owned by just Coca-Cola. We think of Coca-Cola and there must be one rich guy behind it, but the reality is Coca-Cola, Kraft, Nestle, Procter & Gamble, there are people that own more of it, but the reality is these companies are owned by thousands and thousands of people like you and me, regular day people who have regular day jobs, who take their money and they put some of their money in the bank. But your grandma probably puts some of her money in the stock market. And in the stock market, she buys little pieces of all these companies. And that little piece that she puts in, if all the grandmothers around America put a little piece of money in, then Procter & Gamble or Pepsi can use that to build more factories and make more sodas. Rugged individualism, Kellogg-Briand Pact, corporations. And we got it in under 15 minutes.